Right. Okay, in chapter 5, he goes to that academy. This academy is not an entire single building, but a continuation of several houses on both sides of a street, which growing waste was purchased and applied to that use. So it's a beautiful dream, campus. Well, the campus in my dreams, actually. It is not entire building. There's not a single building, but there are houses on each side of the building in a green area. I was received very kindly by the warden and went for many days to the academy. Every room hath in it one or more projectors. I believe I could not be in fewer than 500 rooms. So in every house is side by side on two sides of the road. Every house are built side by side, and there are passages in between them. They are attached to one another in between. The first man I saw was of a meager aspect, with sooty hands and face, his hair and beard long, ragged and singed in several places. So long beard, long hair, a typical, scientist. His clothes, shift and skin were all the same color. He had been 8 years upon a project for extracting sunbeams out of cucumbers, which were to be put into vials hermetically sealed and let out to warm the air in raw inclement summer. Okay, what is the first project? This projector is working on how to produce cucumbers into sunshine. Producing sunshine from cucumbers. A project which seems to be impossible, but he has been working on this for 8 years. He told me he did not doubt in 8 years more he should be able to supply the governor's garden with sunshine at a reasonable rate. So he says, if he works for another 8 years, he might be successful. So in this part, there is a satire on the scientific researchers. Satire. He makes fun of the scientific researchers because most scientific researches seem to be, irrelevant to the minds of the ordinary people, and they have no use in actual life in the society. But he complained that his stock was low, so he hasn't got enough stock of cucumbers, and entreated me to give him something as an encouragement to ingenuity, especially since this had been a very dear season for cucumbers. So the projector says that this season we don't have many cucumbers and I'm short of cucumbers. Can you donate something? I made him a small present, for my Lord had furnished me with money on purpose, because he knew their practice of begging from all who go to see them. This is another shameful part for academics, because the Lord told him that he knows the habit of academics for begging for money everywhere. Yes, it is like that. We academics, like me, for our researches, we always need money, and we always make lots of applications to different places to get some funding, some money for our researches all the time. I went into another chamber, but was ready to hasten back, being almost overcome with a horrible sting in another room. My conductor pressed me forward, conjuring me in a whisper to give no offence, which would be highly resented, and therefore I durst not so much as stop my nose. The projector of this cell was the most ancient student of the academy, oldest student of the academy. His face and beard were of a pale yellow, his hands and clothes daubed over with filth. When I was presented to him, he gave me a close embrace, compliment I could well have excused. He gives him an embrace, he embraces him, but he stinks terribly. When I was presented to him, he gave me, his employment from his first coming into the academy was an operation to reduce human excrement into its original food. Human excrement? Yeah, you know what I mean, excrement, human excrement. He's trying to turn that human excrement into its original food, because you eat it as food and you let it out as excrement, and he's trying to turn it into food. By doing this, he believes that he will solve the problems of food in the world by separating the several parts, removing the tincture which it receives from the gall, making the odor exhale and scumming of the saliva. I saw another at work to calcine ice into gunpowder. So this guy is trying to produce gunpowder out of ice. Who likewise showed me a treatise he had written concerning the malleability of fire, which he intended to publish. There was a most ingenious architect who had contrived a new method for building houses, by beginning at the roof and working downwards to the foundation, which he justified to me by the like practice of those two prudent insects, the bee and the spider. So another project is the project of an architect who claims that they should start building the houses from top to bottom. First build the roof and then go to the base. But how do we build the house? We first build the base and then build up, and the roof is the final part that we are building. This architect argues the opposite. Start from the top to the bottom. And he gives the example of spiders and bees. They start building, or spiders start netting, weaving their net from the top to bottom. There was a man born blind who had several apprentices in his own condition. Their employment was to mix colors for painters, which their masters taught them to distinguish by feeling and smelling. So, does color have a smell? Or can you understand which color it is by touching? No, but in this project they are trying to work on it. And they are trying to do it for the blind people. When they touch or smell, they will understand the color. In another apartment, I was highly pleased with a projector who had found a device of ploughing the ground with hogs to save the charges of ploughs, cattle, and labor. So how are they going to plough the field? That's a lot of labor. So, in this project, they think that they can use hogs. You know, the tiny animals in the fields. They are digging the field to find the roots of vegetables or to find nuts and pieces to eat. So, the method is this. In an acre of ground, you bury at 6 inches distance and 8 deep a quantity of acorns, dates, chestnuts, and other mass of vegetables whereof these animals are fondest. So you bury the ground, some kind of nuts and vegetables that these animals love, and then you drive 600 or more of them into the field. So hundreds of hogs were sent into the field to dig it, wherein in a few days they will root up the whole ground in search of their food. So they will dig and plough the ground, make it fit for sowing. At the same time, manuring it with their dung. So they will do their toilet on it, which will be used as fertile. Dung. It is true, upon experiment, they found a charge and very fertilizer. It will be fertilizer. Their dung will be very fertilizer. It is true, upon experiment, they found the charge and trouble very great, and they had little or no crop. So at the end, after working on this project for a long time, at the end they discovered that this is less practical, more difficult, and more expensive. I went into another room where the walls and ceiling were all hung round the cobwebs, except a narrow passage for the artist to go in and out. So, in another room, everywhere, the ceiling, the walls and everything is covered with cobwebs. So, what is the idea? And, I'm sorry, yes. At my entrance, he called aloud to me not to disturb his cobwebs. He lamented the fatal mistake the world had been so long in of using silkworms, while we had such plenty of domestic insects who infinitely excelled the former because they understood how to weave as well as spin. So the projector tells him that he is very sorry that the world has not been using cobwebs to produce cloth, because we use silkworm. Okay, worms produce silk, and we take the silk web and turn it into cloth, silk cloth. But why don't we create cobweb into cloth? You know, cobwebs are very weak. They are not like silk. And he proposed further that by employing spiders, the charge of dyeing silks should be wholly saved, whereof I was fully convinced, when he showed me a vast number of flies, most beautifully colored, wherein he fed his spiders, assuring us that the webs would take a tincture from them. And as he had them of all blues, he hoped to fit everybody's fancy as soon as he could find proper food for flies, of certain gums, oils, other glutinous matter to give a strength and consistent to the threads. There was an astronomer who had undertaken to place a sundial upon the great weathercock on the townhouse by adjusting the annual and diurnal motions of the earth and sun so as to answer and coincide with all accidental turnings by the wind. Okay, on the next page, I skip the next paragraph. I had hitherto seen only one side of the academy, the other being appropriated to the advances of speculative learning, of whom I shall say something when I have mentioned one illustrious person more, who is called among them the universal artist. He told us he had been 30 years employing his thoughts for the improvement of human life. He had 2 large rooms full of wonderful curiosities, 50 men at work. Some were condensing air into a dry, tangible substance by extracting the niter and softening marble for pillows and pincushions. So here, in this project, they are trying to soften marble to turn it into a pillow. Impossible projects. On the next page, the first professor I saw was in a very large room with 40 pupils around him. After salutation, observing me to look earnestly upon a frame which took up the greatest part of both the length and breadth of the room, he said perhaps I might wonder to see him employed in a project for improving speculative knowledge by practical and mechanical operations. So speculative knowledge is the social sciences, and he's working on a project. And there is a mechanism like this. A mechanism like this. So here, cubes. There are cubes. And how many sides does a cube have? 6 sides. So 6 letters are written. one letter on each side. So each cube carries 6 letters. And there are handlebars on the side of this table. So 40 students hold the bars, hold the handlebars. And when the professor tells them, shake, they shake the table. So like dice, they roll and stop. So they write down the accidental words on paper. Here you go. You have a philosophical book. Okay, so that's another, satire here, because philosophy is a jumble of words, in a mixture of words, and according to the satire, it's as if he treats philosophy as if it's a jumble of words, jam of words. We went next to the School of Languages, where 3 professors sat in consultation upon improving that of their own country. The first project was to shorten discourse by cutting syllables into one, leaving out verbs and participles, because in reality all things imaginable are but nouns. So leave out all participles, verbs, adjectives and whatsoever. Speak with the nouns only. Apple, orange, table, chair, only nouns. The other project was a scheme for entirely abolishing all words whatsoever. Abolish all the words. Get rid of all the words. So how are you going to communicate? For it is, this was urged as a great advantage in point of health, as well as brevity. For it is plain that every word we speak is in some degree a diminution of our lungs by corrosion, and consequently contributes to the shortening of our lives, he says. Because as you speak more, you tire your lungs, and you get easily tired, and it may be harmful to your health. So abolish all the words. Get rid of all the words. An expedient was therefore offered, since all words are only names for things, it would be more convenient for all men to carry about them such things as were necessary to express the particular business they are to take good discourse. So they put small objects in their pockets, small papers on which words are written in their pockets. So when they want to communicate, they just show the name or the object to express themselves. Okay. And this invention would certainly have taken place to the great ease as well as health of the subject if the women, in conjunction with the vulgar and illiterate, had not threatened to raise a rebellion, unless they might be allowed the liberty to speak with their tongues, after the manner of ancestors, such constant, irreconcilable enemies to science are the common people. So women were in rebellion, Gulliver says, because abolishing the words and abolishing the speak was not a good revolution for them. They threatened a rebellion. They want to speak. They want to be given the freedom to speak. So a bad joke for women. Okay. In the next chapter, there's going to be the political sciences, which is going to be a lot more interesting, but that is going to be next week. Okay, see you then. I'm closing the session. Bye. I love you all, and see you soon.